Hey guys, YT Money Nerd here. I'm back again with the next installment of my video series on personal finance. I've gone through 2 videos now about realistic expectations and credit card debt. Hopefully you've already watched both, but if not, I'd recommend you go watch them now by clicking on the links in the description below. This time we're going to be talking about savings. Savings are important, but if you watch my credit card debt video, you'll know that the very first thing you need to do is eliminate that credit card debt. Once you've done that, you can start focusing on building up your savings so you can be prepared for whatever life throws at you without having to sweat about it. Now, I want to be explicit here and tell you that it's not really worth focusing on savings if you still have credit card debt. There are 2 main reasons for this. I gave the first reason in the credit card debt video, so hopefully you already know this. Every month that you have credit card debt, you continue to accrue interest on that debt. As you accrue interest on that credit card debt, it gets added to your balance at the end of the month. This causes you to continue to owe more and more beyond what you originally borrowed from the credit card company. The quicker you can attack this credit card debt, the more money you're going to save yourself in the long run. The second reason that you want to focus on paying off that credit card debt first is that it doesn't actually matter if you choose to build up some savings first in case of emergency. Let's say that you have an unexpected expense like your car breaking down. In scenario number 1, you've chosen to focus on building up your savings. You have $1,000 in your savings account that you have in case of an emergency like this. The good news is that you can cover up to a $1,000 car repair bill without taking on any more credit card debt. The bad news is that you've been paying extra interest that you could have avoided by just paying down your credit card debt. In scenario number 2, you've chosen to focus on paying down your credit card debt. This unexpected car repair expense comes along and now you have to use your credit card for a $1,000 car repair since you don't have any savings. This is unfortunate, but you're still in the same situation that you have credit card debt. The difference here is that instead of having paid extra money on interest, you paid down more of that debt and avoided some of the interest. Okay, so now that we understand that we should only start working on building up savings after paying off all of our credit card debt, let's dive into what you need to do and how. The first thing that you want to make sure of is to have a dedicated savings account if you don't already. I'm going to assume that you have a checking account and that's how you either deposit physical paychecks or receive direct deposit from your employer. If you don't have a checking account, you're going to want to open that account also. When looking for a savings account, you ideally want to find the highest interest rate offered. Your traditional brick and mortar bank might be convenient to drive down the street and get in-person help with your banking, but they probably aren't going to offer a very competitive interest rate and typically have a lot of fees. These would be banks like Wells Fargo or Bank of America. These are least ideal since you won't earn much interest and have to pay those high fees, but you might want that convenience. A better choice for a savings account might be through a credit union. These are smaller, more regional institutions that typically have much better interest rates and lower fees, but aren't quite as convenient or have as many branches. The difference between banks and credit unions is that banks are for-profit while credit unions are non-profit. This explains why you generally get better interest rates and lower fees through credit unions. Credit unions are an excellent choice for opening a savings account, but some might find their less convenient nature to be a deal breaker. A third option is online-only banks. Online banking has gotten very popular due to its convenience for those comfortable with technology. On top of this convenience from banking anywhere you have a Wi-Fi connection or phone signal, these online banks have some of the highest interest rates you can find. Many online banks offer interest rates of over 1% compared to many standard banks offering rates more in the range of 0.01%, which is about 100 times less. This is the difference between $1,000 in your savings account making you $10 per year or 10 cents per year. However, like I said, these online banks really are online only. If you want to be able to speak to someone face-to-face about any of your banking needs, you're not going to be able to do that with one of these savings accounts. One of the best options at the time of this video's posting is Discover Bank, which pays 1.4% interest per year. For any of these options, I would encourage you to do your research and figure out which is the best option for you. One thing you might be wondering about is why I'm saying that you want to look for a savings account with high interest. In the last video, we talked about how high interest on your credit card debt is bad. So why am I telling you now to look for high interest? The answer is that interest can either work in your favor or it can work against you. In the case of credit cards, we talked about how when we borrow money from the credit card company, there's a cost to borrowing where the cost is interest. However, with the savings account, the situation gets turned around. Instead of you being the borrower, the bank becomes the borrower. It's outside of the scope of this video, and I'm not going to get too deep into the specifics, but the bank essentially offers a savings account to you so that they can use the money that you loaned them to invest in other things to make a profit. This would typically be loans to other customers that earn them higher interest than what they're paying you for depositing your money into a savings account with them. Now, you might ask, if they're loaning my money to other people, then will I be able to withdraw all of my money if I want? The answer to this is that they are required by law to keep a certain amount of customers' money in cash reserves instead of investments, so that people can withdraw their money at any time. For your typical large bank, this is 10% of all the money that their customers have deposited. So don't worry about being able to withdraw your money. There are plenty of rules and regulations that banks must follow so that you can get access to your savings anytime you want. Okay, so once you have your savings account selected and opened up, you're going to want to transfer in whatever extra money you have that you don't need to pay your expenses for the month. Make sure to leave yourself a buffer in your checking account to pay bills and prevent overdraft fees. If a bill payment gets taken out of your checking account and you don't have enough money to pay it in full, you'll get hit with overdraft fees. This is the bank covering the bill payment for you, but automatically charging you a fee to allow you to have negative money in your account. These overdraft fees can eat up whatever you make in savings account interest, so we want to be careful about making sure to leave enough money in our checking account to prevent this from happening. Also, you need to know that savings account transfers might take a few days to occur. If you initiate a transfer from your savings account to your checking account to pay a bill, it might take a couple of business days to complete. This is why you want to make sure to be careful to not transfer too much money out of your checking account. Another thing to be wary of is that you might be limited how many transactions you can make in a month. If your savings account only allows 10 transactions a month, that's one transfer every 3 days. This applies to both transfers into and transfers out of your savings account. Just be mindful of this and be careful that you're not going to hit your monthly limit and not have access to your money if you need it to pay for an expense. Going back to my first video on realistic expectations, I had said that building healthy finances takes time. That applied to paying off your credit card debt, and it applies here to building up savings also. Your goal should be to first save up an emergency fund. I would recommend taking a two-step approach to this. In the first step, you're going to want to build up enough savings for any unforeseen expenses. This would be things like a car repair bill or an unexpected trip to the doctor. The important thing is to make this a goal that you can hit in a few months so that you can keep yourself motivated. So try something like $1,000 as your goal. The second step is going to take you some more time. For this next goal, you're going to want to try to save up enough money to pay for 2 or 3 months of living expenses. This is going to be your emergency fund, and this number is going to vary from person to person depending on what your cost of living is. The amount of time it takes is going to depend on how much money you earn, how high your living expenses are, and how much discretionary spending you do. Discretionary spending is just spending you do on non-essential things. This would be spending you might do on things like entertainment, going to restaurants, or leisure travel. Non-discretionary spending is spending you do on essentials like food, housing, transportation costs to get to work, or utility bills. It's important to make a clear distinction between discretionary and non-discretionary spending. Take, for example, clothing. What do you think this falls under, discretionary or non-discretionary? This is an interesting spending category because it falls under both. Everybody needs clothing or else they wouldn't be allowed out in public without getting arrested. However, buying designer clothing from department stores wouldn't fall under the umbrella of non-discretionary spending. This would be discretionary since you don't need to make purchases like this. The same goes with the size of your wardrobe. You don't need enough clothes to never wear the same outfit twice, but you should have enough to be able to get you at an absolute minimum from one load of laundry to the next. A good way to think about discretionary versus non-discretionary spending is needs versus wants. Before making a purchase, you should ask yourself, is this a need or is this a want? A need is non-discretionary, while a want is discretionary. So to circle back to the main topic, the less discretionary spending you do or spending on wants, the quicker you're going to be able to build up your savings for your emergency fund. In the next video, I'm going to help you out with budgeting. Budgeting is going to be important to help you map out and understand where your money goes. This is going to be very helpful to you while you're building up your savings and to help you plot out your course. So please make sure that you're subscribing to this channel for when I release that video. Alright, so now you guys should have a pretty good grasp on the first two concepts you need to know to improve your personal finances. You should also have the understanding that you need to be realistic with yourself about the time and effort involved. This isn't an easy process at first, but once you build up steam and start seeing results, you'll be glad you decided to improve your finances and help reduce the stress in your life. I hope these videos are helpful to you so far and all the content makes sense. I'd recommend going back and rewatching any parts that you don't have a firm handle on. And if you have any questions or comments, please post them below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is YT Money Nerd signing off.